You heard what James Carville believes the way is forward for Democrats. Investigate, do not legislate. How does that land to NewsNation's Katie Pavlich? Katie, good to have you. Thank you for joining me on this Friday. I got to tell you,
Good to see you, Chris.
I was kind of pushing him another way of that the way to connect to the American people is, hey, we can actually get things done that they promised. But he says, no, you got to go at this guy. What do you think of that? What does it create as an opportunity?
I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Democrats impeached President Trump twice. They tried to throw him in prison to prevent him from getting reelected as president. They tried to get him off of the ballot in a number of states. All of that failed. And Democrats are lost in a way because they're not talking about what they're for. And you have people like Congressman Ro Khanna saying if they take the House back, their first priority is going to be impeaching President Trump. And one of the, I think, myths about the president is that he's this far-right ideologue, when really he actually is in the middle on a lot of different issues, and yet Democrats still can't come to the table and negotiate with him on things like health care or drug pricing or big meat conglomerates that he wants to break up because meat prices are too high in this country. So I think it's unfortunate that they can't get to that point and they're only focused on being anti rather than for things that would actually help their constituency.
Do you believe that the president is saying things like, yeah, maybe I'll put boots on the ground, maybe a theocracy there would be okay? Do you think that that's mis and disinformation to mess with the Iranians' heads, or is he trying to mess with our heads?
I think it's classic Trump. You know, he is unpredictable, which is why the world respects the American military in the United States again. He never tells people what he's going to do so that he can be successful in the endeavors that he chooses to take part in. This is not surprising to me at all. At the same time, when James Carville said that they haven't told us what the mission is, that's absolutely not true. You had Secretary of State Marco Rubio multiple times going to Capitol Hill and to the cameras saying the goal isn't regime change, although that would be nice. The goal was to take out the ballistic missile program because that program protected their nuclear program, which, of course, the president has been saying since the 80s is an unacceptable goal of the Iranian regime. And, of course, this is something he said on the campaign trail the first time and the second time. So the issue of planning and what's going to happen, of course, the Pentagon has lots of plans. This is what they do all day long for wars. And given the success of 3,000 strikes over the course of the last week, the fact that the Iranian Navy is at the bottom of the ocean, there's been a lot of successes this week, and they're on track to have even more with another aircraft carrier group going to the Middle East as we speak.
I mean, look, in context, you had to expect that, right? I mean, the U.S. military has tremendous superiority and acumen from above. This is the, in quotes, easy part for the U.S. military. What I don't get is, I get why you don't want to say you're in the regime change business, because that is like, you know, that's never gone well for us in the graveyard of empires that is the Middle East. But don't you have to be in the regime change business to help the Iranians to remove the threat? Otherwise, won't they just build up the same capabilities?
That's exactly what I said, Chris, after we struck the nuclear facilities last June. I said, look, this is the same regime that's going to continue to try to enrich uranium to build a nuclear weapon. 6 days after we struck those sites, you had the Iranian foreign minister coming out defiantly and saying they will continue to pursue that enrichment, which, of course, is for a nuclear bomb. So, yes, I would say that is the logical conclusion to this, but we're working hand in hand with the Israelis, who are the ones who have been taking out the regime targets, but we've been taking out ballistic missile targets. At least that's what CENTCOM has announced so far. So yes, of course, it benefits us not to have this fanatical Islamic regime in place. They've certainly thought that out, and they have plans also. If you look at the way that the Kurds have been marching their way into Iran, there's clearly some planning and covert operations that have been going on here and planned for a long, long time leading up to this moment.
Do you believe there's truth to the idea that the reason we're seeing this on one level, of course, there are multi-factors with everything, right, is that Trump can do this by himself, especially with a Congress that doesn't care about its constitutional duties where military involvement is. And at home, he can't do what he needs to do by himself. He needs Congress. So that's why we're seeing this. This is in some ways easier.
No, I don't think this is easy at all. And I would say actually that this is a president who feels like he has a duty to handle this problem and not push it down the road for 10 years. There's been some reporting about how one of the options was to do another set of bombings that were limited, and then they can have these back and forth conversations again and again about calling the Ayatollah to negotiate over and over again as they lie to our faces about what they want to do. He's watched this again since the 1980s. He was disgusted with the way that President Carter handled our hostages that were held in Iran. He's talked about this for decades. And I think to his credit, he's not looking at this politically. He's looking at it as the right thing to do. And if you look at his history of his relationships in the Middle East, building his relationships with the Qataris, with the Saudis, with the Jordanian king, meeting at the UN just last year with all of the Arab states in New York City, this has been relationship building that he's using now. And if you watch the map, everybody is turning against the Iranians. Everyone is united against the regime. And quietly for years, the Saudis have been saying, we want the regime to go because they are the problem and why we can't move into a new economy in the Middle East.
Right. Well, look, I mean, Iran is helping the group's cause by attacking them right now. What do you say to the faction of MAGA that say, I didn't vote for this. I voted because he wasn't going to do this?
Well, it's a very small faction. I mean, the latest polling shows 89% of the MAGA base agrees that this was the right thing to do. So, you know, you're not going to get everybody to agree with you. But in terms of his MAGA base and who the president believes represents MAGA, he's on very solid footing when it comes to this attack.
Katie Pavlich, I'll see you over there. Hopefully we'll get situated in region, so I'll be able to give you some value on the show.
Sounds good. Safe travels, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.